The wail of sirens pierced the Arizona night as the rumble of a Harley-Davidson thundered across the hospital parking lot. Security guards scrambled as the massive motorcycle roared past the barriers, as tires screeching against asphalt. The rider, a giant of a man with a weathered face and silver beard, clutched a small bundle against his leather jacket. Blood stained his clothes some, his most not. Jack Mason, 68 years old, former Green Beret, now president of the Iron Veterans Motorcycle Club, burst through the emergency room doors. His massive frame towered over the startled staff, his eyes wild with urgency. "Help her, Cat," he growled, revealing the unconscious form of a small girl no more than 6 years old. Blood matted her golden hair. Her skin, pale as moonlight, contrasted against the dark leather of Jack's riding jacket. Now, the emergency room erupted into controlled chaos. Nurses rushed forward. A doctor barked orders, and within seconds the child was whisked away on a gurney, disappearing behind swinging doors. Jack stood motionless, his hands empty, but still held out as if cradling the girl. Blood dripped from his fingertips onto the polished floor. "Sir, you're injured." A young nurse touched his arm gently. "Let me help you." Jack shook his head, eyes fixed on those swinging doors. "Take care of her first." The automatic doors hissed open behind him. A police officer entered, hand resting cautiously on his holstered weapon. Dean Wilkins, 35, with the suspicious eyes of a man who had seen too much in too short a time. "What happened here?" Wilkins demanded, taking in Jack's imposing figure, the blood, the commotion. Jack turned slowly. His eyes, steel blue beneath heavy brows, settled on the officer with the 1,000-yard stare of a man who had faced death too many times to count. "Found her on Interstate 17. Jack's voice was gravel and whiskey. "Someone left her for dead." For a moment, he wasn't in the sterile brightness of Phoenix Memorial Hospital. He was back in the scorching desert of Iraq, 1991. Operation Desert Storm, the sand biting his skin as he dragged his wounded spotter through gunfire. The weight of a brother in arms, the knowledge that seconds meant life or death. That day he'd been too slow. His brother hadn't made it. Tonight would be different. "Sir, I need you to come with me," Officer Wilkins said, interrupting Jack's memory. "There are questions that need answering." Jack's massive hands clenched. "The only place I'm going is wherever that little girl is." Around them, the emergency room had fallen, silent staff in patience watching the standoff between the blood-covered biker and the increasingly tense police officer. "We can do this easy or hard," Wilkins said, his hand inching closer to his weapon. Jack didn't move. He'd faced worse threats than an overzealous cop with something to prove. His voice, when it came, was deadly quiet. "Son, I've killed men with my bare hands in service to this country. I've been shot, stabbed, and blown up more times than you've written parking tickets. Now I'm going to power on you and check on that little girl, and you're welcome to follow me. But if you touch that gun, they'll need to call in another officer to arrest what's left of you." Wilkins paled but held his ground. The standoff might have escalated if not for the timely arrival of a man in surgical scrubs, his silver hair cropped short in a military style that even decades of civilian life hadn't softened. "Jack Mason," the surgeon said, surprise evident in his voice. "What the hell kind of trouble have you found now?" Jack's posture changed instantly. "Michael, is she alive?" Dr. Michael Roberts, 57, former Army surgeon, nodded. "Barely. What happened?" "Later," Jack said. "Save her first." Michael studied his old friend for a moment, then nodded to the police officer. "I'll vouch for him, officer. This man served with distinction in Desert Storm. If he says he found the girl, that's exactly what happened." Wilkins hesitated, then stepped back reluctantly. "I'll still need a statement." "And you'll get one," Michael assured him before turning to Jack. "Let's get you patched up while my team works on the girl." Jack followed his old friend down the hallway, leaving bloody boot prints on the pristine floor. The memories of another desert, another time, another life shadowing his every step. Jack Mason lived a life defined by war and its aftermath. Born in 1956 to a World War II veteran father and a mother who worked in a munitions factory, he had war in his blood. He enlisted at 18, earned his Green Beret by 22, and spent the next 2 decades in the world's most dangerous places, doing things his country needed but wouldn't acknowledge. His military record read like fiction. Multiple tours, countless medals, missions that officially never happened. He was a ghost, a legend, a warrior from another time who somehow survived into this one. The Gulf War should have been his last deployment. He was older than most of the men in his unit, but experience counted more than youth in special operations. Operation Desert Storm became his final battlefield, the place where he lost faith in the system he had served so faithfully for so long. After discharge, he drifted. The civilian world had no place for men like Jack Mason, men shaped by violence and hardened by sacrifice, men who spoke a language of brotherhood that few civilians understood. He found that language again in the Iron Veterans Motorcycle Club. Founded by Vietnam veterans in the 70s, the club had evolved over decades. Now it welcomed warriors from Iraq, Afghanistan, and all the shadowy conflicts in between. They weren't outlaws, though many had the skills to be formidable ones if they chose. Instead, they channeled their training and brotherhood into something constructive. Jack rose through the ranks quickly. His natural leadership, honed in combat, made him a respected figure. 5 years ago, he became president when the previous leader succumbed to Agent Orange-related cancer. The club became his family when he lost his own. His wife, Catherine, to breast cancer 12 years ago. His son, James, to a car accident 3 years later. The double blow left Jack Hollow a man with nothing to lose and nowhere to go but forward. He owned a small house near the Last Stand garage where many club members worked. He lived simply on his military pension and the modest income from the custom motorcycle parts he designed. His prized possession was his '95 Harley-Davidson Street Glide Special, modified with his own hands to be as reliable and powerful as the weapons he once carried into combat. His days followed a predictable pattern. Morning runs regardless of weather. Breakfast at the Rusty Spoke Diner where the owner, a Vietnam vet, never charged him full price. Days at the garage or club headquarters. Nights alone with a glass of bourbon and memories he couldn't outrun. Until tonight. Until the moment he spotted something on the dark shoulder of Interstate 17 that changed everything. Michael finished taping a bandage over the gash on Jack's forearm. 12 stitches. You always were a bleeder. The girl? Jack insisted, pulling his arm away. How is she? Michael's expression grew serious, critical but stable. Fractured skull, internal bleeding, broken arm. Someone worked her over, Jack. This wasn't an accident. Jack's face hardened. How old? 6, maybe 7, small for her age. Jesus, Jack muttered. He'd seen children in war zones with fewer injuries. Will she make it? If she survives the night, her chances improve dramatically. She's in surgery now. One of our best pediatric neurosurgeons is working on her. Jack nodded, processing the information. Any idea who she is? No ID, obviously. Police are checking missing persons reports. Nothing matching her description yet. The door burst open, startling both men. A woman in hospital scrubs rushed in, her face ashen with panic. She was young, early 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail and the muscular build of someone who kept herself combat ready. Where is she? She demanded. Where's my daughter? Michael stood quickly. Amanda. What are you talking about? Sarah, she choked out. My daughter. They said a little girl was brought in. Blonde hair, blue rabbit pajamas. Jack studied the woman carefully. Something about her stance, her alertness even in panic, triggered his instincts. Military, recent, Afghanistan or Iraq most likely. She's in surgery, Michael said gently, moving to the woman's side. Amanda Jenkins works here, he explained to Jack. One of our best trauma nurses. Amanda's eyes locked onto Jack, noticing him for the first time. She took in his size, the blood on his clothes, the bandaged arm. You found her, you found Sarah, Jack nodded slowly. Interstate 17, mile marker 253. Amanda's legs gave out. Michael caught her, guiding her to a chair. That's impossible, she whispered. She was asleep in her bed. I checked on her before my shift. When was that? Jack asked. 11 o'clock. I work nights. The sitter stays until morning. Jack glanced at the clock. Nearly 2 a.m. Call the sitter. Amanda fumbled for her phone with shaking hands. The call went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. Something's wrong, she said, rising to her feet. I need to go home. I need to check. You need to stay here, Michael countered firmly. Your daughter is in surgery. She needs you here when she wakes up. But how did she... Amanda's voice trailed off as the implications settled in. Someone had taken her daughter from her home and brutalized her before dumping her on a highway. Jack watched a transformation come over the woman. The panic receded, replaced by something colder, more focused. He recognized it immediately. The combat mindset, the emotional shutdown that allowed soldiers to function in impossible situations. "Tell me exactly where you found her," Amanda said, her voice now eerily calm. Before Jack could answer, Officer Wilkins returned, accompanied by a tall, stern-faced man in an immaculate suit despite the late hour. "Mrs. Jenkins," the newcomer said. "Special Agent Carson Ford, FBI. I need to speak with you immediately." Jack's instincts went from alert to high alarm. FBI involvement this quickly wasn't standard procedure for a child assault case, even one this severe. Amanda seemed equally surprised. "FBI? Why would—" "It's about Operation Desert Snake," Ford interrupted. "Your security clearance, your work at the facility." The color drained from Amanda's face. Jack noted the reaction, filing it away. Whatever Operation Desert Snake was, it clearly meant something to both of them. "Not here," Amanda said quietly, glancing at Jack and Michael. Ford nodded toward Jack. "Is this the man who found your daughter?" "Yes," she confirmed. "Then he's already involved," Ford said grimly. "We should talk privately. All of us." They relocated to a small conference room in the administrative wing. Jack took position with his back to the wall, old habits ensuring he could see both exits. Amanda sat rigidly, her nurse's uniform now seeming like camouflage for something else entirely. "Mrs. Jenkins has been in our witness protection program for the past 3 months," Ford explained once the door was closed. "Until tonight, her cover was intact." Jack kept his expression neutral, but his mind raced. Witness protection explained why the woman carried herself like a soldier but worked as a nurse. "I was a military contractor," Amanda said, meeting Jack's gaze directly. "Specialized in biological research. 6 months ago, I discovered my employers were falsifying safety data on a classified weapons system to secure additional funding." "Operation Desert Snake," Jack said. The name triggered something in his memory. Rumors from his final years of service. A black budget program developing next-generation biological countermeasures, supposedly. Amanda nodded. "You're familiar with it?" "Only by reputation." Ford interjected. "Mrs. Jenkins reported the falsification through proper channels. Shortly afterward, her lab experienced a containment failure. 2 of her colleagues died. She recognized it as an attempt on her life and contacted us. We've kept her and her daughter safe until now," Ford continued. "This attack represents a significant security breach." Yes, Jack processed the information, measuring it against the evidence of his own eyes. The girl Sarah wasn't just beaten. She was deliberately placed where someone would find her. She was a message. Amanda flinched. Ford nodded grimly. "To draw you out," Jack continued, looking at Amanda. "They couldn't find you, so they used your daughter as bait. The question is how they found Sarah in the first place," Ford said, "and why they left her alive." A terrible silence filled the room as the implications sank in. Whoever had taken Sarah could have killed her. Instead, they had hurt her badly but left her where she might be found in time. "Security camera footage," Jack said suddenly. "The Love's truck stop near where I found her has cameras covering that stretch of highway." Ford was already reaching for his phone when it rang. He answered, listened briefly, then ended the call with a curse. "Someone's trying to access the pediatric ICU," he reported. "Hospital security has detained 1 man, but they believe others are in the building." Jack was on his feet instantly. "What are they wearing?" "Black tactical gear. No identification." "Mercs," Jack growled. "Professional wet work team." He was moving before Ford could respond, his body responding to the familiar rush of adrenaline. Behind him, he heard Amanda following her footsteps, quick and determined. They took the stairs rather than risk the elevator. Jack's years of morning runs paid off as they descended 3 flights without breaking stride. They emerged into a hallway crowded with frightened hospital staff. "Where's the pediatric ICU?" Jack demanded of a wide-eyed orderly. "East Wing, 2nd floor," the young man stammered. "But there's some kind of security situation." Jack changed direction, Amanda right behind him. They reached the East Wing stairwell just as 2 men in black tactical gear emerged, weapons visible beneath their jackets. Jack didn't hesitate. He charged forward, driving his shoulder into the first man's chest, slamming him against the wall with bone-crushing force. The second man reached for his weapon, but Amanda was there, her movements fluid and practiced. She struck the man's wrist with surgical precision, then delivered a devastating knee to his groin. Both men went down hard. Jack quickly secured their weapons, professional silenced handguns that confirmed his mercenary assessment. "You've had training," he said to Amanda, impressed despite the circumstances. "Force recon before I got my biology degree," she replied, checking the fallen men for additional weapons. 4 years, 2 tours in Afghanistan. That explained her competence and bearing. Force recon Marines were among the military's elite. Jack found what he was looking for on the first mercenary's uniform. A small insignia partially concealed a three-headed dog. Cerberus security. The sight of it hit him like a physical blow. Memories cascaded through his mind. Iraq, 1991. A village that wasn't supposed to exist. Civilians who saw things they shouldn't have. And a man, a brother in arms, who made a decision Jack couldn't abide. "Marcus," he whispered. "You know them?" Amanda asked sharply. Before Jack could explain, hospital security arrived, followed closely by Ford and several uniformed police officers. "Secure these men," Ford ordered. "I want full biometric identification." While the officers took custody of the unconscious mercenaries, Jack pulled Ford aside. "I need to see the security footage from where I found Sarah. Now." 20 minutes later, they were watching grainy night vision footage from the truck stop's security system. The timestamp showed 11:17 p.m., approximately 2 hours before Jack found Sarah. A black SUV without license plates pulled to the shoulder. Two figures emerged, dragging a small form between them. They dumped what was clearly a child onto the ground before speeding away. "Can you enhance the image?" Ford asked the security technician. The tech zoomed in on the vehicle. Despite the poor quality, a small logo was visible on the driver's door. The same three-headed dog. Cerberus Security. "I know who's behind this," Jack said grimly. "Marcus Blackwood, former Delta Force. We served together in Desert Storm." Ford looked skeptical. "You're saying a former Delta operator is involved in the abduction and attempted murder of a child?" "I'm saying he's capable of it," Jack corrected. "Marcus runs Cerberus now, private military contractor with government contracts, including, I suspect, security for whatever facility Amanda was working at." Amanda nodded slowly. "Cerberus handled external security for the Desert Snake facility. I never dealt with them directly." "Marcus believes in absolute loyalty to the mission," Jack continued. "If your daughter saw something at that facility, something they want to keep hidden." He didn't need to finish the thought. The implications were clear. "We need to move Sarah as soon as she's stable," Ford decided. "Secure federal facility." Jack shook his head. "They've already infiltrated this hospital. Your federal facility will be compromised before you arrive." "What do you suggest?" Ford asked, frustration evident in his voice. Jack considered their options. Cerberus had resources, training, and government connections. They would be expecting traditional security measures, federal marshals, safe houses, established protocols. "I need to make a call," he said finally. Ford started to object, but Amanda interrupted. "Let him. Conventional protection has already failed us once tonight." Jack stepped away and dialed a number from memory. When the call connected, he spoke 3 words. "Iron Forge burning." It was the club's emergency activation code established years ago for situations exactly like this. Within minutes, 12 other phones across Phoenix would be ringing. 12 men, all veterans, all brothers, would be grabbing go bags and mounting motorcycles. "Help is coming," he told Amanda and Ford when he returned, "but we need to move your daughter somewhere safer immediately." "She's still in surgery," Amanda protested. "Then we secure the operating room," Jack decided, "and prepare for extraction the moment she's stable." Ford looked like he wanted to object, but years of field experience made him recognize the logic of Jack's plan. "I'll coordinate with hospital security," he conceded, "and I'll check on Sarah's condition." Amanda added, her professional nurse's demeanor reasserting itself. Left alone momentarily, Jack took stock of his situation. His motorcycle was still in the emergency room parking lot. His club brothers were en route. A team of mercenaries led by his former comrade was hunting a little girl for unknown reasons. Just another day in the life of Jack Mason. He used the moment of solitude to send a text message with very specific instructions to the club's intelligence expert, a former Navy cryptologist who went by the road name Ghost. Within 20 minutes, the first Iron veterans began arriving. They came in pairs, experienced enough to maintain tactical awareness, even in what should be a secure environment. Jack greeted each with the firm embrace of warriors, briefing them quickly on the situation. By 3 a.m., the pediatric surgical wing was secured by 11 combat veterans whose combined experience represented over a century of warfare. They wore civilian clothes over body armor, and each carried concealed weapons despite the hospital's restrictions. At 3:17 a.m., Dr. Michael Roberts emerged from surgery, his scrubs stained with blood, his expression exhausted but relieved. "She made it," he told Amanda, who had been pacing outside the operating room. "The next 24 hours will be critical, but I'm cautiously optimistic." "When can she be moved?" Jack asked. Michael looked startled by the question. "Moved? She shouldn't be moved for at least 48 hours. The intracranial pressure needs to be monitored constantly." "We don't have 48 hours," Jack said. "Maybe not even 24. Michael pulled Jack aside, lowering his voice. "What the hell are you involved in? Mason, that little girl nearly died on my table." "Trust me," Jack replied. "The less you know, the safer you are." "That's not good enough, not when my patient's welfare is at stake." Jack respected his old friend's dedication. "There are people trying to kill her, Michael. Professional killers. We need to get her somewhere secure until we understand why." Michael processed this, his medical ethics warring with practical reality. "I can arrange for portable monitoring equipment," he said finally. "Medications, supplies. But I need at least 6 hours to stabilize her post-op condition." "You have 4, Jack replied. "Dawn is in 5 hours. We move before first light." The doctor nodded reluctantly. "I'll do what I can." Jack turned to find Amanda watching him intently. "Why are you helping us?" she asked. "You don't know us. This isn't your fight." Jack considered the question. Why was he involving himself and his brothers in what was clearly a dangerous situation? The answer came from a place deeper than conscious thought. "I've seen what happens when the powerful decide certain lives are expendable," he said finally. "Your daughter deserves better than becoming collateral damage in someone else's war." Amanda studied him, measuring his sincerity. Whatever she saw satisfied her. "Thank you," she said simply. Their moment of connection was interrupted by a commotion at the end of the hallway. Jack turned to see a group of men in expensive suits being stopped by 2 Iron veterans. Even from a distance, Jack recognized the leader of the newcomers. Marcus Blackwood hadn't changed much in the decades since they'd served together. Still fit, still commanding, still radiating the cold confidence that made him an effective leader and a dangerous enemy. His hair had gone silver and lines carved deeper around his eyes, but the Predator's intensity remained unchanged. "Hold position," Jack instructed Amanda before walking toward the confrontation. The 2 Iron veterans, both Afghanistan veterans named Miller and Rodriguez, stood firm despite being outnumbered. They nodded respectfully as Jack approached. "Marcus," Jack said, stopping several feet away from his former comrade, "you're looking well for a man in your line of work." Marcus smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. "Jack Mason, still riding with your little motorcycle gang, I see. How quaint." "We prefer club," Jack replied evenly, "and at least we don't hire out to the highest bidder." The barb hit its mark. A flash of anger crossed Marcus's face before he controlled it. "I need to speak with you, privately." Jack assessed the situation. Marcus had brought 4 men, all with the same professional bearing as the mercenaries they'd encountered earlier. All undoubtedly armed despite the hospital setting. "Say what you came to say," Jack replied. "But my men stay." Marcus sighed theatrically. "He's so stubborn." "Fine. You're involving yourself in matters of national security, Jack. Matters beyond your clearance or understanding. Funny, assaulting children doesn't strike me as national security." "That child saw things she shouldn't have," Marcus replied coldly. "Things that could compromise operations involving thousands of lives. She's 6 years old." "And that makes her innocent," Marcus countered. "Wake up, Jack. Age doesn't determine threat level in our world. You know that better than most." Jack felt the old rage building, the same fury he'd experienced in that Iraqi village when Marcus ordered his men to eliminate potential security risks, including children. "Walk away," Jack advised, his voice deadly quiet. "Whatever you're protecting, it's not worth this." "That's where you're wrong," Marcus replied. "Some secrets are worth any price, even the life of one child." Before Jack could respond, Amanda pushed past him, her face contorted with rage. "You're the one who took her," she accused Marcus. "You had your men break into my home and kidnap my daughter." Marcus regarded her calmly. "Mrs. Jenkins, or should I say Lieutenant Jenkins, formerly of Force Recon, your daughter wasn't supposed to be harmed. That was overzealous implementation of orders by my men." "Overzealous!" Amanda's voice shook with fury. "They fractured her skull. She nearly died. An unfortunate escalation," Marcus acknowledged without apparent remorse, "but necessary to bring you back into the fold." Jack placed a restraining hand on Amanda's shoulder, feeling her trembling with rage beneath his palm. "What do you want, Marcus, really?" "The data Mrs. Jenkins stole before her dramatic departure from the program," Marcus replied. "Return it, and this unfortunate situation can be resolved quietly." "I didn't steal anything," Amanda protested. "I reported illegal activity through proper channels." Marcus smiled thinly. "Then you won't mind accompanying me to verify that claim, you and your daughter, once she's stabilized." "That's not happening," Jack stated flatly. "You can't stop this, Jack," Marcus said, his tone almost pitying. "This goes higher than you can imagine. By morning, there will be federal warrants for both you and Mrs. Jenkins. Obstruction of justice, theft of classified materials, perhaps even treason." Jack didn't doubt Marcus could make good on the threat. Men like Blackwood thrived in the shadows between government authority and deniable operations. "Last chance to walk away," Jack offered. Marcus shook his head. "Always the idealist. It's why you never reached your full potential." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Jack, that club of yours, I know where every one of them lives, their families too. Think about that before you decide to play hero." After Marcus and his men departed, Jack turned to Amanda. "Is there something you're not telling me, data you took from the facility?" Amanda hesitated, then nodded fractionally. "Not data I took, information Sarah might have seen." "Explain." Amanda glanced around the hallway, then lowered her voice. "Sarah has a condition, hyperthymesia, perfect recall. She remembers everything she sees in perfect detail forever." Jack processed this revelation. "She was at the facility once," Amanda confirmed. "3 months ago, before we entered witness protection. My childcare fell through. I had to bring her for 2 hours while I completed critical lab work. She was supposed to stay in my office playing on her tablet. But she wandered," Jack guessed. Amanda nodded miserably. "She's curious, always has been. I didn't realize she'd left until I found her in a restricted area looking at documents on an open computer terminal. I thought it was nothing. Just lab results, technical specifications. Nothing a child would understand or remember." "Except your child remembers everything," Jack said, understanding dawning. "And Marcus somehow found out about her condition." "It must have been in my personnel file," Amanda confirmed. "When the investigation into my whistleblowing began, someone connected the dots. The pieces fell into place for Jack. A child with perfect recall exposed to classified information. A desperate organization willing to do anything to contain a potential security breach. Even if that meant abducting and silencing a 6-year-old girl." "What exactly might she have seen?" Jack asked. "I don't know," Amanda admitted. "But if Marcus is this desperate to get her back, it must be something devastating to the program." Their conversation was interrupted by Rodriguez, one of the Iron veterans standing watch. "Boss," he called urgently, "you need to see this." Jack followed him to a television in the waiting area. The early morning news was broadcasting a special bulletin. Jack's photograph, taken from his military service record, filled the screen. Beneath it, the words, "Wanted for questioning," in bold red letters. "Authorities are seeking Jack Mason, 68, in connection with the assault of a minor," the newscaster announced. "Mason was last seen at Phoenix Memorial Hospital. He is considered armed and dangerous. If spotted, do not approach." "That was fast," Jack muttered. "Marcus works efficiently." "What do we do?" Amanda asked, fear evident in her voice. Jack made his decision instantly. "We accelerate the timeline. We move Sarah now, not in 4 hours." "But Michael said—" "Michael will have to adapt," Jack interrupted. "Marcus just played his hand. By noon, every law enforcement agency in Arizona will be looking for us." He turned to Rodriguez. "Activate the Ghost Protocol, full digital blackout, and tell the brothers to prep for immediate evacuation." The younger veteran nodded and moved away, already reaching for his secured phone. Jack faced Amanda, seeing the fear and uncertainty in her eyes. "I made you a promise," he said firmly. "I intend to keep it. But from this moment forward, you follow my lead without question." "Understood." Amanda straightened the Marine in her, responding to the authority in his voice. "Understood." "Good," Jack said, already calculating their next move. "Because we're about to go to war." In the operating recovery room, Sarah Jenkins lay motionless, tubes and wires connecting her small body to an array of monitoring equipment. Beneath her closed eyelids, her eyes moved rapidly in dream state. In her perfect memory, images flickered. Documents, photographs, names, numbers, schematics, information worth killing for. The sun would rise in 3 hours. By then, Jack Mason and the Iron Veterans needed to vanish, taking with them the child who had seen too much and the mother who had dared to speak truth to power. The clock was ticking. Dawn approached with the promise of blood. The eastern sky barely hinted at first light as Jack Mason orchestrated the most dangerous extraction of his civilian life. The hospital corridor bustled with controlled urgency, his Iron Veterans moving with military precision despite their civilian appearance. Jack stood at the junction of two hallways, radio earpiece in place, watching as Dr. Michael Roberts supervised the transfer of Sarah Jenkins to a portable life support system. The girl remained unconscious, her small form dwarfed by medical equipment. Tubes and wires connected her to monitors that beeped with reassuring regularity. "Her vitals are stable," Michael reported, his voice tight with professional concern. "But this is against every medical protocol I've ever followed." "Sometimes survival trumps protocol," Jack replied, checking his watch. 20 minutes until their transport arrived. 18 minutes until hospital shift change would provide additional cover for their escape. "How long can she remain on portable support?" 6 hours maximum before we need to recharge batteries and replace oxygen." "She needs a proper medical facility, Jack." "She'll have one." Jack surveyed his team, counting heads and assessing readiness. 12 Iron Veterans had answered his call, all former military, all combat experienced, all willing to risk everything on his word alone. The weight of their trust settled on his shoulders like a familiar rucksack. Rodriguez, former Marine sniper, maintained watch at the north stairwell. Miller, Army Ranger with 3 Purple Hearts, secured the south. The others formed a protective perimeter around the recovery room, intercepting staff, redirecting visitors, maintaining the illusion of normalcy while preparing for imminent conflict. Amanda Jenkins stood beside her daughter's bed, her face composed despite the fear evident in her eyes. She had changed from her nurse's scrubs into clothes borrowed from a female doctor, her hair now hidden beneath a surgical cap. The disguise was minimal, but might buy precious seconds during their escape. "Ghost reports police presence increasing at all hospital entrances," said Wilson, the club's communications specialist. "FBI setting up command posts in the lobby. Unmarked vehicles matching Cerberus security profile observed in the parking structure." Jack nodded. Marcus was tightening the noose exactly as expected. "Any word from our transportation?" 2 minutes ahead of schedule. Ready on your signal." Jack made his final assessment. The odds were long, but not impossible. His team was outnumbered, but held the advantage of surprise and unconventional tactics. Most importantly, they had purpose, something worth fighting for. "Execute Phase 1, Jack ordered. Wilson nodded and spoke quietly into his radio. Seconds later, the hospital fire alarm shrieked to life. Emergency strobes bathed the corridor in pulsing white light. The sprinkler system remained dormant, evidence of Ghost's digital manipulation of the building's safety protocols. Controlled chaos erupted as staff began emergency evacuation procedures. Jack observed with satisfaction as security personnel were immediately diverted to manage the flow of patients and visitors toward designated exits. "Phase 2, Jack commanded. 4 Iron Veterans moved as one, wheeling an empty hospital bed toward the service elevator. 2 more followed with a laundry cart large enough to conceal the portable life support equipment. The diversionary team executing their role perfectly. "Get ready to move," Jack told Amanda. "Stay close to me, touch nothing, speak to no one." She nodded, military discipline evident in her posture despite the circumstances. Jack recognized the controlled fear in her eyes, the same expression he'd seen in countless soldiers before high-risk operations. Fear channeled into focus. Terror transformed into tactical awareness. Michael finished securing Sarah's monitoring equipment. She's ready, he reported, his voice nearly lost beneath the blaring alarms. You don't have to come with us, Jack reminded him. You've done enough. Michael's expression hardened. I took an oath to protect my patients. I'm coming. Jack didn't argue. He recognized the same determination that had driven Michael to perform surgery under artillery fire during Desert Storm. Once the doctor committed to a course of action, nothing short of death would deter him. The transport team returned confirming the diversionary props were in place. Jack checked his watch and nodded to Wilson. Execute Phase 3. The hospital's lights extinguished simultaneously, emergency generators failing to engage. In the sudden darkness, illuminated only by the pulsing emergency strobes, the Iron Veterans activated, night vision equipment concealed beneath casual clothes. Jack took position at the head of Sarah's bed. Move, now. They proceeded swiftly through the darkened corridors, a well-rehearsed formation protecting the precious cargo at its center. Jack led with Amanda beside him. Michael monitored Sarah's vitals via the dim light of battery-powered equipment. The remaining veterans formed a protective diamond around them. Weapons now visible beneath open jackets. They avoided the main elevators and stairwells, instead taking a service route mapped during the hospital's construction by one of their members. The path led through maintenance areas seldom used by regular staff, minimizing potential encounters. Jack's radio crackled with Wilson's voice. Diversion team reports Cerberus security converging on North Wing. FBI establishing perimeter control at all public exits. Acknowledged, Jack replied. Maintain course. They reached a service elevator used for transporting medical waste to the underground loading dock. The space was tight but sufficient for their needs. Jack positioned Sarah's gurney carefully, ensuring the life support equipment remained accessible to Michael during their descent. 3 floors down, Jack reminded them as the doors closed. Then 200 meters to the loading dock. Transport should be in position. The elevator descended with agonizing slowness. Jack felt the familiar pre-combat calm settling over him. Time seemed to stretch. His senses sharpened. The weight of his concealed sidearm pressed reassuringly against his ribs. Her oxygen saturation is dropping slightly. Michael reported, adjusting equipment settings. Nothing critical yet, but we need to minimize jostling. Amanda squeezed her daughter's hand, whispering reassurances that the unconscious child couldn't hear. Jack observed the tenderness in the gesture, remembering his own son. The familiar ache of loss momentarily threatened his focus. The elevator shuddered to a halt. Jack raised his fist, signaling everyone to hold position. He pressed his ear against the metal doors, listening for movement outside. 2 voices, he reported. Security personnel discussing the alarm. Rodriguez moved forward, a compact stun device in his hand. I'll handle it. Jack considered the options. Non-lethal engagement risked alerting others. Avoidance would be preferable. Hold, he ordered. Wilson, can you trigger a secondary alarm in another section? Wilson nodded, keying a sequence into his phone. Seconds later, they heard shouts from the corridor as new alarms sounded in a distant part of the building. They're moving, Jack confirmed, ear still pressed to the door. Prepare to exit on my mark. He counted 30 seconds, ensuring the security personnel had sufficient time to clear the area. Then he pressed the door open button, weapon ready. The corridor was empty. Jack signaled the all clear and the team moved swiftly into formation. They proceeded through sterile hallways that smelled of industrial cleaner and medical waste, navigating by memory toward the loading dock. They were 50 meters from their destination when disaster struck. She's crashing, Michael announced, his voice sharp with alarm. Oxygen saturation dropping rapidly. Blood pressure destabilizing. Jack immediately halted the procession. What's happening? Michael was already working, adjusting equipment and checking connections. Possible hemorrhage. The movement may have disturbed the surgical site. I need to stabilize her before we continue. How long? 5 minutes minimum, maybe longer. Jack calculated rapidly. 5 minutes exposed in a corridor was tactically unacceptable. Options, Rodriguez pointed to a nearby door. Supply closet, defensible position. Jack nodded. Move her inside. Rodriguez, Wilson, secure this corridor. Everyone else with me. They maneuvered the gurney into the supply closet, a space barely large enough for Sarah, Michael, Amanda, and Jack. Medical supplies lined metal shelving units, providing some cover but limiting movement. Michael worked with practiced efficiency, administering medication and adjusting equipment. Amanda assisted silently, her medical training evident in her precise movements. Status, Jack demanded, after 3 minutes that felt like hours. Stabilizing, Michael replied without looking up. Another few minutes. Jack's radio crackled with Wilson's urgent voice. Two Cerberus operators approaching from the north corridor, heavily armed. Intercept and delay if possible, Jack ordered. Non-lethal only. Understood. Jack positioned himself at the door, weapon ready. The confined space limited tactical options. If Cerberus located them here, the resulting confrontation would endanger Sarah regardless of outcome. Through the door, Jack heard the muffled sounds of struggle. A thud, a grunt of pain, then silence. His radio remained ominously quiet. Wilson, report, Jack whispered into his comm. No response. Rodriguez status. Silence. Jack met Amanda's eyes over Sarah's gurney. No words were necessary. The situation had deteriorated from bad to critical. How much longer? Jack asked Michael. 2 minutes minimum. She's not stable enough to move. Jack made his decision. Lock this door behind me. Open only for my voice or Rodriguez's. Where are you going? Amanda demanded. To buy you time. Before she could object, Jack slipped through the door, closing it firmly behind him. He heard the click of the lock engaging as he surveyed the corridor. 20 meters north, Wilson lay unconscious, a pool of blood spreading from a head wound. Rodriguez was nowhere in sight. Two figures in tactical gear moved methodically through the hallway, checking rooms with professional efficiency. Cerberus operators. Undoubtedly more were en route. Jack considered his options. Direct confrontation would reveal their position. Retreat was impossible. Stealth was his only viable strategy. He moved silently along the wall, decades of combat experience guiding every step. His breathing slowed. His awareness expanded to encompass the entire corridor. He became the predator rather than the prey. The closest Cerberus operator paused outside a room 10 meters from Jack's position. The man was young, perhaps 30, with the confident posture of former military. Well-equipped, well-trained, dangerous. Jack closed the distance in 4 silent steps. His attack was swift and precise, one hand clamping over the man's mouth, while the other delivered a crushing blow to the vagus nerve. The operator collapsed without sound, unconscious, before he hit the floor. One down, one visible threat remaining. The second operator turned at that moment, alerted by some sixth sense that experienced soldiers develop in combat zones. He raised his weapon, but Jack was already moving, closing the gap before the man could acquire his target. They collided with controlled violence. Jack drove his forearm into the operator's throat, simultaneously grasping the weapon's barrel and forcing it upward. A silenced shot discharged into the ceiling. Jack twisted, violently breaking the man's grip on the weapon while simultaneously sweeping his legs. They went down together, Jack using his superior weight to advantage. The operator fought with technical precision, evidence of formal close-quarters combat training. Jack countered with the brutal efficiency of a man who had learned to kill before this operator was born. The struggle ended abruptly when Jack delivered a decisive strike to the temple. The operator went limp beneath him. Jack retrieved both weapons quickly, checking for additional threats. The corridor remained clear, but he knew reinforcements would arrive soon. The unconscious operators would be missed. He dragged both men into an adjacent room, securing them with plastic zip ties from his pocket. Standard equipment for Iron veterans on security detail. Always prepared, always ready. Jack returned to the supply closet, giving the predetermined knock sequence. The door opened immediately to reveal Amanda's terrified face, a scalpel clutched in her hand. Wilson's down, Jack reported tersely. We need to move now. She's stabilized enough for short-term transport, Michael announced, but I need to monitor her constantly. Jack nodded. Stay close to me. Rodriguez will find his own way out if he can. They resumed their journey toward the loading dock, moving with increased urgency. Jack took point, both appropriated weapons ready. The formation was compromised without Rodriguez and Wilson, but they had no choice but to continue. They reached the loading dock without further incident, emerging into the gray light of early dawn. The massive space, normally bustling with delivery activity, stood eerily empty, evidence of Ghost's digital manipulation of the hospital's scheduling system. Jack scanned the area, identifying their planned extraction point. A large laundry truck idled nearby, its engine rumbling quietly. 2 Iron veterans stood beside it, alert and ready. There's our ride, Jack confirmed, guiding Sarah's gurney toward the vehicle. Get her loaded first. As they approached the truck, the rear doors swung open to reveal a custom medical transport configuration. Oxygen tanks, monitoring equipment, even a generator for the life support systems. The Iron veterans had outdone themselves with the preparations. Impressive, Michael acknowledged as they secured Sarah's gurney to the reinforced mounts inside the truck. This rivals some military medical evac units I've seen. Many of our members served as combat medics, Jack explained, helping Amanda into the vehicle. We maintain emergency medical capability for club events and charity rides. Once Sarah was secured, Jack conducted a final perimeter check. Still no sign of Rodriguez. Wilson remained unaccounted for. The knowledge weighed heavily on him. No man left behind had been his creed throughout his military career. Necessity now forced him to violate that sacred principle. Everyone aboard, Jack ordered, climbing into the truck's cab. We're Oscar Mike. The driver, a burly veteran named Thompson, nodded grimly. Where to, boss? Safe House Alpha, northern route, avoid main highways. Thompson engaged the transmission, and the laundry truck began moving toward the exit ramp. Jack maintained vigilant watch, scanning for threats as they emerged into morning traffic. They had traveled less than half a mile when Jack's secure phone vibrated. Ghost's voice came through, tense but controlled. Cerberus has established roadblocks on all major arteries leading from the hospital. Police scanner indicates FBI has authorized pursuit protocol. They're describing you as a kidnapping in progress. Jack cursed silently. Rodriguez Wilson. Wilson is in custody. Rodriguez made it out through the morgue. He's mobile and evading pursuit. Good man. Have him rendezvous at Checkpoint Charlie. Acknowledge. One more thing. Facial recognition is active on city traffic cameras. They've prioritized you, Amanda, and the doctor. Jack absorbed this information, quickly revising their escape plan. Implement Echo Protocol. We need to disappear completely. Already in progress, Ghost confirmed. Good hunting. The call ended. Jack turned to Thompson. Change of plans. Take us to the rail yard. We need to switch transport. Thompson nodded, altering course without question. The Iron veterans had established contingency plans for exactly this scenario, influenced by Jack's military experience and paranoia. Echo Protocol involved complete abandonment of electronic devices, separation into smaller teams, and utilization of transportation methods resistant to modern surveillance. In the cargo area, Jack briefed Amanda and Michael on the situation. They've established a dragnet. Facial recognition is active. We need to change our appearance and then split up temporarily. Amanda's expression remained resolute despite her fear. What about Sarah? She can't be moved between vehicles in her condition. She won't be, Jack assured her. You and Sarah will continue in this vehicle with medical support. The rest of us will create diversions to draw pursuit away from you. I'm staying with my patient, Michael stated firmly. Jack had expected nothing less. Understood. Ghost has prepared documentation identifying you as medical transport specialists. It should withstand routine scrutiny. They arrived at the rail yard as the sun cleared the horizon. The sprawling industrial complex provided ideal cover for their vehicle exchange. Multiple Iron veterans awaited them, having arrived separately to avoid detection. Jack supervised the transfer of essential equipment and supplies to 3 separate vehicles. A medical transport van would carry Sarah, Amanda, Michael, and 2 Iron veterans with medical training. A delivery truck would transport weapons and tactical gear. The remaining members would disperse in civilian vehicles, creating multiple diversion targets for pursuers. As preparations continued, Jack pulled Amanda aside. Once you're clear of the city, head north toward Flagstaff. There's a hunting cabin in the Coconino National Forest. Isolated, defensible, stocked with supplies. He handed her a sealed envelope containing a hand-drawn map. No electronics, no GPS, old-school navigation only. The cabin doesn't exist on any digital record. Amanda studied the map briefly before securing it inside her jacket. What about you? I'll lead the primary diversion team south, then circle back after throwing them off our trail. Jack met her eyes directly. I won't abandon you or your daughter. That's a promise. Amanda held his gaze, measuring his sincerity. After a moment, she nodded. I believe you. The preparations were completed with military efficiency. Jack conducted final communications checks with each team, ensuring everyone understood their roles and contingency plans. Ghost had established a secure radio frequency utilizing outdated technology that modern surveillance would overlook. As the teams prepared to disperse, Jack addressed them one final time. You all know what we're up against. Professional operators with government resources. They'll be relentless, determined, legally sanctioned. He surveyed the faces of his brother's men who had followed him into this danger solely on his word. What we're doing isn't legal, but it's right. That little girl deserves a chance to live without becoming collateral damage in someone else's war. Nods of agreement rippled through the assembled veterans. They understood sacrifice. They understood injustice. Most importantly, they understood the difference between lawful and moral. Stay alive, Jack concluded. See you at the rendezvous. The teams dispersed according to planned, vehicles departing at staggered intervals to avoid attracting attention. Jack watched the medical transport van disappear from view, carrying precious cargo toward relative safety. His diversion team consisted of 4 veterans beside himself. All had volunteered specifically for this high-risk assignment. All understood they would be drawing enemy fire to protect the others. Mount up, Jack ordered, climbing onto a Harley-Davidson Road King, nearly identical to his own motorcycle left behind at the hospital. Let's make some noise. They roared out of the rail yard in tight formation, 5 motorcycles heading deliberately south toward the Mexican border. Jack led his posture and riding style intentionally recognizable to surveillance, the perfect bait for their pursuers. They had traveled less than 10 miles when Ghost's voice crackled through their radio headsets. Pursuit vehicles identified, 4 unmarked SUVs, Cerberus tactical team, intercept course calculated. Acknowledged, Jack responded, proceeding to phase 2. The motorcycle formation split smoothly, each rider taking a different route according to their prearranged plan. Jack continued straight ahead, maintaining high visibility as the primary target. In his rearview mirror, he spotted 2 black SUVs gaining ground, their driving style confirming professional pursuit training. Jack smiled grimly beneath his helmet, everything proceeding according to plan. He accelerated, pushing the motorcycle to its performance limits as he weaved through increasingly heavy morning traffic. The pursuit vehicle struggled to match his maneuverability, forced to adopt more aggressive tactics that attracted unwanted attention. Perfect. Jack activated his radio. Ghost status on primary package. Medical transport clear of city limits. Proceeding north as planned. No pursuit detected. One small victory. Jack allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before refocusing on his own situation. The pursuing SUVs had closed the distance considerably. Tactical teams with superior vehicles and coordination against a single motorcycle. The outcome was inevitable without intervention. Time to change the rules. Jack veered suddenly onto an exit ramp cutting across multiple lanes of traffic. Horns blared, brakes squealed. The pursuing vehicles attempted to follow, but were temporarily blocked by the chaos Jack had created. The exit led to an industrial area Jack had selected specifically for this maneuver. Narrow streets, limited surveillance, multiple escape routes, terrain that favored his motorcycle over their SUVs. He navigated the maze-like streets with practiced precision, utilizing the full capabilities of his motorcycle. Sharp turns, narrow alleys, obstacles that forced him to rely on skills honed through decades of riding. The pursuit vehicles reappeared, having split up to approach from multiple directions. Jack counted 4 separate vehicles, now confirming that all available Cerberus teams had focused on him rather than the medical transport. Mission accomplished. Now he just needed to survive long enough to rejoin Amanda and Sarah. Jack accelerated toward a railway crossing, timing his approach to coincide with an oncoming freight train. The crossing gates descended. Warning lights flashed. The pursuing vehicles would expect him to stop or turn aside. He did neither. The motorcycle launched through the closing gates, clearing the track seconds before the train thundered past. Jack glanced back to see the Cerberus vehicles forced to halt, temporarily stymied by the passing train. Another small victory, but temporary. They would circle around, establish new pursuit vectors. The chase would continue until Jack either escaped or was captured. He used the brief respite to change course, heading west rather than south. Ghost had arranged a vehicle exchange point 20 minutes away. If Jack could reach it undetected, he might yet evade pursuit completely. The morning sun climbed higher, promising another scorching Arizona day. Jack felt fatigue beginning to creep into his awareness. He had been operating continuously for nearly 12 hours, running on adrenaline and decades of training. His radio crackled with an unexpected voice. "Mason, this is Blackwood. I know you can hear me." Jack's blood ran cold. Marcus had accessed their radio frequency, a significant security breach with dangerous implications. "Your encryption is good," Marcus continued, "but not good enough. We have resources you can't imagine." Jack maintained radio silence, changing direction again to throw off potential triangulation. His mind raced, calculating the implications. If Marcus could access their communications, what else did he know? "I respect what you're trying to do," Marcus said, his voice unnervingly calm. "Protecting the innocent. It's why we became soldiers in the first place. But you're interfering with something bigger than one child." Jack remained silent, weaving through side streets while maintaining his westward trajectory. "The Jenkins girl saw something at our facility, something she couldn't possibly understand but can perfectly recall. Information that could compromise national security if it reaches the wrong hands." Jack finally responded, unable to maintain silence in the face of such justification. "She's 6 years old, Marcus. Age is irrelevant. The information in her mind could cost thousands of lives if exposed. So your solution is to abduct and silence a child." "What happened to you?" Marcus's voice hardened. "I adapted to reality, something you never managed to do. The world isn't black and white, Jack. Sometimes protecting the many requires sacrificing the few." "I've heard that justification before," Jack replied bitterly, "usually from men about to commit atrocities." "This isn't like Iraq," Marcus insisted. "I'm not asking you to compromise your principles. Just bring the girl in. Let our medical team evaluate her. If she hasn't retained critical information, she goes free." And if she has, the silence that followed provided all the answer Jack needed. "That's what I thought," Jack had said. "Not happening, Marcus." "Then you leave me no choice." Marcus's voice turned coldly professional. "All units converge on Mason's position. Authorization for maximum force approved." Jack immediately changed course, abandoning his planned route to the vehicle exchange. Multiple pursuers would be converging on his position, using his radio transmissions to triangulate his location. His options narrowed dramatically. "Ghost, they've compromised our communications," Jack broadcast, knowing Marcus would hear, but needing to warn the others. "Switch to contingency channels. Protect the package at all costs." He cut power to his radio immediately afterward, removing the battery to prevent any possibility of tracking. Now he was truly alone, isolated from his team, and pursued by an adversary with overwhelming resources. Jack spotted the first pursuit vehicle 2 blocks behind him, closing rapidly. A second appeared ahead, attempting to cut off his escape route. Professional coordination. Textbook vehicle interception tactics. He swerved down a narrow alley barely wide enough for his motorcycle. The pursuing vehicles couldn't follow directly, but would circle around to intercept him at the exit. Jack assessed his surroundings with combat-honed awareness. The alley terminated in a chain-link fence. Beyond it, a construction site. No viable exit without abandoning his motorcycle. He made his decision instantly. Accelerating toward the fence, he braced for impact. The motorcycle crashed through the barrier with a metallic shriek, momentum carrying both bike and rider into the construction zone. Jack weaved through stacked materials and heavy equipment, the motorcycle's tires struggling for traction on the uneven ground. Behind him, he heard vehicles screeching to a halt at the alley entrance, men shouting, tactical teams deploying on foot. The pursuit had entered its most dangerous phase. No longer vehicular, but man-to-man. Hunters tracking a single quarry through difficult terrain. The type of operation Jack himself had led countless times during his military career. Now he was the target rather than the hunter. Jack abandoned the motorcycle behind a concrete mixer, continuing on foot through the half-constructed building. His combat boots moved silently across dusty floors as he navigated through skeletal walls and exposed wiring. The structure provided temporary concealment, but limited escape options. Jack climbed to the second floor, seeking vantage points and potential exit routes. Through gaps in the exterior sheathing, he observed Cerberus operators establishing a perimeter. Professional, methodical, closing the noose with practiced efficiency. Jack counted at least 12 operators, all heavily armed despite their civilian appearance. No police presence yet, suggesting Marcus was keeping this operation off official channels. Small mercies. His position would be compromised within minutes. Standard search protocols would ensure thorough coverage of the structure. Jack needed an unconventional strategy to create an escape opportunity. He spotted construction materials on the far side of the site. Lumber, fuel containers for equipment, potential resources for a desperate man with combat engineering experience. Jack moved silently toward his objective, utilizing structural elements for cover. The Cerberus team had begun their systematic search of the ground floor. Their radio communications were audible, professional, and precise. They knew their target and his capabilities. Subject is former special forces. Approach with extreme caution. He is to be considered armed and extremely dangerous. Jack reached the material staging area undetected. Working quickly, he assembled an improvised distraction using the construction materials and a small amount of fuel from a nearby generator. Not lethal, but sufficient to create confusion and divided attention. He positioned his creation carefully, then moved to his planned escape route on the opposite side of the construction site. Timing would be critical. The Cerberus team reached the second floor, moving in coordinated pairs through the unfinished spaces. Jack remained motionless in his concealment, controlling his breathing as search elements passed within feet of his position. When the majority of operators had committed to the upper floor search, Jack activated his distraction remotely using a construction site radio he had appropriated. The resulting explosion wasn't large, but in the confined space of the construction site, it created the desired effect. Smoke billowed from the material staging area. Flames licked at exposed wooden framing. Cerberus operators responded immediately, several rushing toward the fire, while others maintained search discipline, exactly as Jack had planned. He moved during the moment of divided attention, slipping through the perimeter at its weakest point. The operator stationed there had turned to observe the fire, creating a momentary blind spot in their coverage. Jack cleared the construction site perimeter undetected, entering the adjacent commercial district. Morning business activities provided welcome cover as he moved purposefully away from the search area, adopting the posture and pace of an ordinary citizen rather than a fugitive. 6 blocks and 15 minutes later, Jack deemed himself temporarily clear of immediate pursuit. He entered a small diner, selecting a booth with clear sightlines to both entrance and emergency exit. The breakfast rush provided anonymity among workers grabbing coffee and morning meals. Jack ordered coffee, using the moment to assess his situation. His motorcycle was lost, his communication with the team severed, his planned extraction route compromised. But the primary mission had succeeded. Sarah and Amanda were clear of the city, heading toward the cabin safe house. The diversion had worked as intended, drawing pursuit resources away from the medical transport. Now Jack needed to evade capture and rejoin them. A formidable challenge given the resources arrayed against him, but not impossible. He had overcome worse odds during his military career. A television mounted in the corner of the diner caught his attention. The local news was broadcasting a special bulletin. Jack's military service photo appeared on screen beside the word "wanted." The ticker below described him as armed and dangerous wanted in connection with a child abduction from Phoenix Memorial Hospital. The official manhunt had begun. Every law enforcement agency in Arizona would be looking for him now. Civilian authorities in addition to Cerberus operators. Jack maintained his composed exterior while calculating new escape parameters. His appearance was his most significant liability. The silver beard and imposing physical presence made him easily identifiable. Time for adaptive tactics. He left payment for the coffee and departed the diner, moving with unhurried confidence toward a nearby shopping center. The morning crowd provided cover as he entered a department store, heading directly to the men's section. 15 minutes later, Jack emerged transformed. His beard was gone, shaved in the store restroom. His distinctive leather jacket replaced with an innocuous golf shirt and lightweight jacket. A baseball cap and sunglasses completed the transformation. He proceeded to the bus terminal 2 blocks away, purchasing a ticket for Flagstaff with cash. The transaction required no identification, the aging ticket system a fortunate relic of simpler times. As Jack waited for the bus's departure, he observed police vehicles passing with increasing frequency. The dragnet was expanding, resources pouring into the search. Time was running short. The bus departed on schedule, carrying Jack and 24 other passengers northward out of Phoenix. He selected a seat that allowed observation of following traffic, maintaining tactical awareness despite his civilian disguise. For the first hour, the journey proceeded without incident. Jack allowed himself to hope they had lost his trail in the confusion of the construction site confrontation. That hope died when Ghost's voice unexpectedly emerged from the bus's public address system. The driver looked confused, examining the controls as the familiar voice filled the cabin. Mason emergency broadcast. Repeat emergency broadcast on all available channels. Medical transport intercepted near Payson. Cerberus tactical team. Shots fired. Package status unknown. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Jack frozen in his seat as other passengers murmured in confusion about the strange announcement. Sarah and Amanda had been found. Intercepted. Under attack. Jack rose from his seat, moving toward the front of the bus with renewed purpose. The mission parameters had changed completely. Evasion was no longer the priority. It was time to take the fight directly to Marcus Blackwood. The bus driver looked up in surprise as Jack approached. Sir, please remain seated while the vehicle is in motion. Emergency stop, Jack replied, his voice leaving no room for argument. Now. Something in Jack's expression convinced the driver to comply without further question. The bus pulled onto the shoulder, pneumatic doors hissing open. Jack stepped out into the desert heat, already planning his next move. The northbound highway stretched before him, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through arid landscape. He needed transportation, weapons, communication. Most importantly, he needed to reach Sarah and Amanda before Marcus's team could disappear with them. A mile marker indicated his position. 40 miles north of Phoenix, 20 miles from the next significant town. Limited options in the immediate vicinity. Jack spotted a roadside diner and gas station in the distance. Potential resources. He began walking, his pace deliberate but urgent. The sun beat down mercilessly as Jack covered the distance to the gas station. His military training had conditioned him for desert environments, but at 68 he felt the heat more acutely than in his younger days. The gas station appeared quiet when he arrived. 2 pickup trucks and a motorcycle occupied the parking area. Jack assessed each vehicle for potential appropriation, evaluating risk factors and practical considerations. The motorcycle drew his attention immediately, a Harley-Davidson Softail, older model but well-maintained, similar enough to his own bike that he could operate it without adjustment period. The owner, a burly man in his 50s, emerged from the watch station convenience store carrying a coffee and sandwich. He wore a faded military-themed vest with patches indicating Vietnam veteran status. Jack modified his approach instantly. Instead of vehicle theft, a different strategy presented itself. Nice Softail, Jack commented as the man reached his motorcycle. 89. The man looked up, eyes narrowing slightly with the instinctive wariness of those who had seen combat. 92. You ride a Road King mostly. Green Beret, retired. The man's posture changed subtly, the universal recognition between veterans transcending generational differences. Marines K-San, name's Dawson. Mason, Jack Mason. Dawson's expression shifted, recognition dawning. Wait, aren't you the guy they're looking for on the news, the kidnapping? Jack assessed the man carefully before responding. The patches on his vest suggested membership in a veteran-focused motorcycle club. Not Iron Veterans, but a similar organization. It's not what they're reporting, Jack said finally. Child protection, not kidnapping. Former military contractor targeting a little girl who saw something she shouldn't have. Dawson's weathered face remained impassive, but his eyes reflected understanding. Veterans of certain operations recognize the euphemisms. Black budget stuff. The kind that gets buried along with witnesses. A moment of silence stretched between them as Dawson processed this information. Finally, he nodded toward the diner. Buy you a coffee while you tell me what you need. Inside the diner, Jack provided a carefully edited version of events. Enough truth to establish credibility without compromising operational security. Dawson listened without interruption, occasionally nodding in recognition of familiar scenarios. So this little girl is in trouble because she saw something at a classified facility, Dawson summarized. And you're trying to keep her safe from a private military contractor with government connections. That's the situation, Jack confirmed. Dawson considered this, stirring his coffee thoughtfully. You got brothers looking for you, your club. Iron Veterans, recognition flashed in Dawson's eyes. You boys do that charity ride for wounded warriors last year. Raised something like $50,000. Jack nodded. The Iron Veterans maintained a public presence through charity work despite their occasional unorthodox activities. My club coordinated with yours on that, Dawson said. Hell's Horsemen. We handled the Northern Arizona leg. Connection established. The Brotherhood of military veterans and motorcycle enthusiasts created bonds that transcended conventional social structures, a network that existed beneath official awareness. I need to get to Payson, Jack explained. My people were intercepted there. Communication is compromised. Dawson pulled out his phone. I've got brothers in Payson. They can get eyes on the situation while I get you there. Appreciated. Dawson made a brief call, speaking in the coded language of motorcycle clubs. To uninformed listeners, the conversation would sound innocuous. To those who understood the subtext, it was a clear call for assistance. Two brothers heading to the North Highway now, Dawson reported after ending the call. They'll monitor police bands and check the approach roads for unusual activity. Jack felt a surge of gratitude for the unquestioning assistance. The brotherhood forged in combat extended far beyond military service, creating connections that official organizations could neither track nor comprehend. My bike's yours if you need it, Dawson offered. But I've got a better option. My truck's out back, less conspicuous than a motorcycle for a man your size. I can drive while you rest. Jack considered the offer. A trusted driver would allow him to conserve energy for the coming confrontation. The truck would attract less attention than a motorcycle. Practical considerations outweighed his preference for solo operation. Appreciate the assist, Jack accepted. But this isn't your fight. There will be professionals with military-grade weapons. Dawson's expression hardened with the determination of a man who had faced combat. Those bastards took a shot at a little girl. That makes it every veteran's fight. They departed within minutes, Dawson's truck heading north toward Payson, while his motorcycle remained at the police station under the watchful eye of the sympathetic owner. Jack used the journey to rest and prepare mentally for the coming confrontation. He knew Marcus Blackwood's tactical preferences from their shared military history, knew the man's strengths and weaknesses, knowledge that might provide critical advantage despite being outgunned and outnumbered. Halfway to Payson, Dawson received a call from his club brothers. He listened intently before relaying the information to Jack. Police and ambulance reported on Highway 87, 15 miles south of Payson. Witnesses described a medical transport van forced off the road by multiple black SUVs. Gunfire exchanged. Jack's expression remained impassive despite the surge of concern. Casualties. Unknown. Scene was cleared before my brothers arrived. Evidence of tactical recovery operation, shell casings, tire tracks consistent with rapid departure. Professional extraction, Marcus's style. Jack processed the information tactically rather than emotionally suppressing concern for Amanda and Sarah to focus on operational parameters. They'll take them to a secure facility for interrogation, Jack reasoned aloud. Standard procedure would be the closest Cerberus installation with medical capabilities. My brothers say there's a private research facility outside Payson, Dawson offered. Lots of security, no public access, rumors among locals about government contracts. That's our target, Jack decided. Your brothers have numbers I can call on. Dawson's grim smile suggested he anticipated the question. 8 Hell's Horsemen in Payson, all Vietnam or Gulf War veterans, all armed, all willing. This isn't their fight, Jack protested, though without conviction. When they took that little girl, they made it every decent man's fight, Dawson countered. Brotherhood doesn't end when the uniform comes off. Jack nodded in acknowledgement of this fundamental truth. The bond between those who had faced combat together transcended conventional loyalty. It was something civilians could never fully comprehend, something Marcus had betrayed when he chose to target a child. Call your brothers, Jack instructed. We need intelligence on the facility, access points, security protocols, personnel numbers. Dawson made the call, activating a network that existed beneath official awareness. Veterans who had returned to civilian life, but maintained the skills and mindset forged in combat zones. Jack watched the desert landscape pass outside the truck's window, calculating odds and planning approach vectors. The confrontation with Marcus Blackwood was inevitable now. No longer a question of if, but how and when. Sarah Jenkins remained the priority. A child with the misfortune of perfect memory in a world where certain knowledge was deemed too dangerous to exist outside secured facilities. Jack's phone vibrated with an incoming message. Ghost had established a new communication channel more secure than their previous network. The message contained 4 words that transformed the operational parameters completely. Sarah awake, remembering everything. The child's awakening from unconsciousness changed the tactical situation dramatically. Her perfect recall would now be active, potentially revealing whatever classified information she had glimpsed at the research facility. Information Marcus Blackwood considered worth killing for. The race had truly begun, not just to rescue Sarah and Amanda, but to understand what the child had seen that justified such extreme measures. Jack composed his response carefully. Incoming with reinforcements, hold position, protect the child at all costs. As they approached Payson, the rugged terrain of northern Arizona replaced the desert flatlands. Pine forests and rocky outcroppings provided natural concealment for tactical operations. Advantageous terrain for the coming confrontation. Jack felt the familiar calm of pre-mission focus settling over him. Age had not diminished his capacity for controlled violence when necessary. If anything, experience had refined his tactical awareness to compensate for decreased physical capabilities. Marcus Blackwood would be expecting the desperate actions of a concerned protector. Jack would deliver the calculated precision of a combat veteran with nothing left to lose. The pieces were moving into position, the battle lines drawn, the stage set for confrontation between former brothers in arms, now divided by fundamentally different interpretations of their duty to protect. In the balance hung the life of a child whose only crime was remembering what she saw. Sarah Jenkins, age 6, had become the center of a shadow war between men who had once fought side by side for the same flag, now opposing each other in a conflict without uniform or country, but with stakes just as high. The true test of Jack Mason's lifetime of service was about to begin. Dusk settled over the Cerberus research facility, painting the security perimeter in lengthening shadows. The compound stood isolated among the pines of Coconino National Forest, its clinical architecture at odds with the natural beauty surrounding it. Chain-link fencing topped with razor wire encircled the main buildings. Armed guards patrolled with military precision. Surveillance cameras monitored every approach. From his concealed position on a forested ridge 500 yards away, Jack Mason studied the facility through high-powered binoculars. The tactical assessment was automatic, decades of special operations experience guiding his analysis. 3 visible entry points, approximately 20 security personnel on exterior patrol, vehicle depot on the eastern perimeter, communications array on the main building's roof, multiple blind spots in the camera coverage, exploitable weaknesses despite the professional security presence. Beside Jack Dawson and 7 members of the Hell's Horsemen maintained disciplined silence awaiting his assessment. These men had answered the call without hesitation. Veterans from Vietnam and Desert Storm, many well past conventional retirement age, but with combat skills kept sharp by decades of experience. They're in there, Jack confirmed, lowering the binoculars. Medical transport van in the secure garage, 2 ambulances on standby, heavy security presence around the east wing. Armed response if we go in hot, asked Dawson, his weathered face grim in the fading light. Minimum 20 operators with military-grade weapons, possibly more inside. Cerberus recruits from Special Forces exclusively. These aren't rent-a-cops. The Hell's Horsemen absorbed this information with the stoic acceptance of men who had faced impossible odds before. No one suggested retreat. The knowledge that a child was being held within that compound had awakened something primal in these aging warriors, a protective instinct stronger than fear or self-preservation. 4 of my iron veterans managed to evade capture, Jack continued, gesturing toward the northern perimeter. They're approaching from separate vectors, maintaining communication blackout until 0 hour. That gives us 12 experienced operators against their 20+. Worse odds in Nam, commented one of the older horsemen, a former helicopter gunner, judging by the faded tattoo on his forearm. What's the play, Mason? Jack unfolded a hand-drawn schematic of the facility compiled from satellite imagery and intelligence gathered by Ghost's digital reconnaissance. The plan had evolved during the approach to Payson, refined by each new piece of information. Multi-pronged assault, Jack explained, indicating key positions. Primary objective is the East Wing Medical Center, where they're likely holding Sarah and Amanda. Secondary objective is their data center. We need to secure whatever information Sarah saw that made her a target. He outlined the tactical approach with the precision of a man who had planned similar operations across multiple war zones. The veteran bikers listened intently, occasionally offering refinements based on their own combat experience. The plan that emerged was unconventional, but leveraged their unique strengths against Cerberus's procedural weaknesses. 0 hour at 2200, Jack concluded. Questions. There were none. These men understood what was at stake. They had all seen enough of the world's darkness to recognize when a stand must be taken, regardless of legal niceties or personal risk. One thing to remember, Jack added, his voice taking on a harder edge. Marcus Blackwood is mine. We have history that needs settling. The veterans nodded in understanding. Old scores between warriors were sacred matters not to be interfered with by outsiders. As final preparations commenced, Jack stepped away from the group, seeking a moment of solitude before combat. The familiar ritual of mental preparation had not changed since his first deployment decades ago. Center the mind, accept the possibility of death, focus on the mission, not the fear. Ghost's voice crackled through his earpiece, breaking the moment of reflection. Package confirmed in medical suite East Wing. Surveillance shows Sarah conscious but sedated. Amanda under armed guard. Dr. Roberts appears to be treating Sarah under duress. Jack absorbed this information with grim satisfaction. At least they were alive. Marcus, present on site, command center in main building. Approximately 15 additional Cerberus personnel identified inside the compound. Satellite surveillance. Temporarily blinded by maintenance issues. Gift from an old friend at the Pentagon who owed me a favor. We have a 90-minute window before alternate systems come online. Jack allowed himself a slight smile. Ghost's network of contacts throughout military and intelligence communities had proven invaluable once again. Understood. Maintain perimeter monitoring. Alert on any change in security posture. Wilco, Ghost out. Jack rejoined the veterans who had completed their preparations with the quiet efficiency of experienced operators. Weapons checked, communications tested, roles understood, the calm before intentional chaos. Time, Jack announced, checking his watch, synchronized for 0 hour and 40 minutes. As darkness claimed the forest completely, Jack led the team toward their designated infiltration points. The approach was silent, each man moving with the practiced stealth of combat veterans. They utilized the natural terrain for concealment, advancing methodically toward the perimeter fence. At the edge of the tree line, Jack signaled a halt. The security floodlights illuminated the cleared area surrounding the compound, creating a killing zone for defenders. Conventional wisdom dictated avoiding such exposure. Jack Mason had never been particularly conventional. Execute Phase 1, he ordered quietly into his radio. 30 seconds later, a series of explosions erupted on the facility's western perimeter. Not lethal ordnance, but carefully placed diversionary charges prepared by an iron veteran with demolition expertise. The effect was immediate. Alarms blared. Security personnel rushed toward the apparent breach. Floodlights redirected to the western fence line. Phase 2, Jack commanded once the security response had committed. Ghost's digital assault commenced, simultaneously targeting the facility's electronic infrastructure. Surveillance cameras froze or displayed looped footage. Communication systems experienced mysterious failures. Electronic door locks throughout the compound entered reset cycles. In the momentary confusion, Jack led the primary assault team across the exposed ground toward the eastern perimeter. Inbound. 4 Hell's Horsemen accompanied him, moving with surprising agility despite their age. The remaining veterans established covering positions with scoped rifles prepared to provide suppressive fire if needed. They reached the fence without detection, utilizing the temporary blind spot created by the diverted security response. Jack deployed compact wire cutters, creating an entry point with practiced efficiency. Years might have passed since his active duty days, but muscle memory remained intact. First team proceed to objective, Jack ordered as they slipped through the opening. Second team initiate Phase 3 on my mark. The infiltration team moved in tactical formation toward the east wing, utilizing shadowed areas and structural cover. The facility had been designed with external threats in mind, but like many such installations, internal security relied heavily on controlled access points rather than comprehensive coverage, a weakness Jack fully intended to exploit. They encountered the first Cerberus operator at a side entrance to the east wing. The man reacted professionally, raising his weapon while activating his radio. Both actions were interrupted by Jack's swift and silent takedown, a precision strike that rendered the operator unconscious without raising alarm. "Zip tie and secure," Jack ordered, already moving toward the entrance. The door's electronic lock had been affected by Ghost's digital assault, requiring only minimal force to breach. Inside, the clinical environment contrasted sharply with the tactical situation. Sterile corridors, bright fluorescent lighting, the antiseptic smell of a medical facility. Jack oriented himself, quickly identifying directional indicators toward the medical suite. "Three tangos approaching from North Corridor," warned one of the Hell's Horsemen who had taken point position. Jack signaled for defensive positions. When the Cerberus operators rounded the corner, they faced an immediate ambush. The veterans executed with textbook precision, neutralizing the threat without gunfire. The resulting unconscious bodies were quickly secured and hidden from immediate view. "Maintain discipline," Jack reminded the team. "Non-lethal engagement unless directly threatened. These men are following orders, misguided as they may be." They proceeded deeper into the facility, encountering sporadic resistance that was handled with similar efficiency. Jack's tactical awareness remained razor-sharp, anticipating security responses and adjusting their approach accordingly. The years might have added silver to his beard, but they had also provided invaluable experience that no younger operator could match. Ghost's voice provided ongoing intelligence through their earpieces. Security attempting to restore systems. Estimated 10 minutes before surveillance reactivation. Marcus has initiated facility lockdown protocols from the command center. "Location of primary package," Jack inquired, using operational terminology that felt uncomfortably clinical when referring to a 6-year-old child. "Medical suite, second floor, east wing. 2 armed guards at the entrance. Dr. Roberts and Amanda Jenkins inside with Sarah. Marcus periodically present for questioning." Jack processed this information tactically. "Proceed to second floor. Prepare for direct action on my command." They located the stairwell, advancing with methodical precision toward their objective. As they approached the second-floor medical suite, Jack halted the team for final coordination. "2-man team on the guards," he directed. "I'll lead the entry once secured. Priority is ensuring no harm comes to the child or her mother." The veterans nodded in understanding. Jack selected 2 former Force Recon Marines for the initial engagement men, whose close-quarters combat skills remained formidable despite their age. The takedown of the guards proceeded with textbook precision. Before either Cerberus operator could react, they were neutralized and secured. Jack approached the medical suite, door weapon ready but controlled. "On my mark," he said quietly, positioning himself for entry. 3, 2, 1, execute. The door swung open to reveal a fully equipped medical treatment room. Sarah Jenkins lay on a hospital bed connected to monitoring equipment that beeped with reassuring regularity. Amanda stood beside her daughter, visibly startled by the sudden entry. Dr. Michael Roberts looked up from examining medical readouts, his expression shifting from fear to recognition. "Jack," Michael said, relief evident in his voice. "Thank God." Amanda rushed forward. "They've been questioning her," she reported urgently, trying to determine what she saw at the facility. Jack moved to the bedside, assessing Sarah's condition. The child appeared pale but conscious, her eyes widening at his approach. "You're the motorcycle man," she said, her voice small but clear. "The one who saved me." "That's right," Jack confirmed, his gruff exterior softening momentarily. "And I'm here to take you home." "They keep asking about the pictures in my head," Sarah continued, her innocent articulation of complex circumstances striking in its clarity. "The ones I saw on the computer at Mommy's work." Jack glanced at Amanda, who nodded confirmation. "She has perfect recall of everything she saw. Pages of data, formulas, names. We need to move now," Jack decided, turning to Michael. "Is she stable for transport?" "Yes, but she needs continued medical supervision," Michael replied. "The head injury is healing, but she remains at risk for complications." "You're coming with us," Jack stated, making it clear this wasn't a request. "We'll need your medical expertise until she's fully recovered." Michael didn't hesitate. "Of course, I've been effectively a prisoner here anyway. Let me gather essential supplies." Jack turned to his team. "Secure the corridor. Prepare for extraction. Primary package plus 2 accompanying." As the veterans moved to establish a defensive perimeter, Ghost's voice crackled through Jack's earpiece with increased urgency. "Alert! Marcus is en route to your position with 4 operators. ETA 2 minutes. The tactical situation deteriorated instantly. Extraction with a child patient would be slow. Engagement with Marcus and his team in the confined space of the medical wing risked collateral casualties. Jack made his decision without hesitation. Evacuate the primary package with escort. I'll handle Marcus. Negative, countered the Hell's Horseman team leader. We don't leave men behind. This isn't a debate, Jack replied, his voice carrying the absolute authority of a combat commander. The child is the priority. Get her out through the route we established. I'll create a diversion and rejoin at the extraction point. The veterans recognized the tactical necessity despite their reluctance. Jack quickly outlined the adjusted extraction plan to Amanda and Michael, ensuring they understood their roles. What about you? Amanda asked, concern evident in her expression. I've got unfinished business with Marcus, Jack replied. Been a long time coming. Amanda studied him for a moment before nodding in understanding. Thank you for everything. Thank me when you're all safe, Jack responded, checking his weapon. Now move out. The extraction team departed with practiced efficiency, escorting Sarah, Amanda, and Michael toward their planned exit route. Jack moved in the opposite direction, intentionally creating noise to draw attention. A hunter becoming bait to protect his charges. He positioned himself at the junction of 2 corridors, selecting the tactical ground for the coming confrontation. The location provided multiple lines of sight while limiting approach vectors that Marcus's team could utilize. Jack didn't have to wait long. Marcus Blackwood appeared at the far end of the corridor, flanked by 4 Cerberus operators in tactical gear. Even at a distance, Jack could see that the years had not diminished his former comrade's commanding presence or dangerous competence. Mason, Howie, Marcus called, his voice echoing down the sterile hallway. I know you can hear me. This doesn't have to end badly. You made it end badly when you targeted a child, Jack responded, remaining in cover but projecting his voice clearly. The girl is a national security risk whether she understands it or not, Marcus countered. What she saw at that facility could compromise operations that protect thousands of American lives. So explain it to me, Jack challenged, buying time for the extraction team to clear the building. What exactly is worth abducting and threatening a 6-year-old? Marcus paused, seemingly weighing operational security against the tactical situation. Project Chimera, he finally stated, a biological countermeasure program designed to protect our troops against emerging threats. The girl saw research data that certain foreign intelligence services would kill to acquire. And your solution was to terrorize a child and her mother. There are protocols for security breaches that don't involve kidnapping. Those protocols assume rational adult actors, Marcus replied, his tone coldly professional. Not a child with perfect recall who could innocently reveal classified information at any time. The risk was too great to handle through conventional channels. Jack heard the justification he'd expected, the same ruthless calculus that had divided them in Iraq decades earlier. There's always another way, Marcus. You just stopped looking for it when it became inconvenient. Where is the girl, Jack? Marcus demanded, his patience visibly thinning. My men have secured the perimeter. There's no escape route that isn't covered. Jack smiled grimly, though Marcus couldn't see it from his position. You always did underestimate the resourcefulness of old soldiers. At that moment, a series of explosions rocked the western side of the compound, significantly larger than the initial diversionary charges. Phase 3 of their assault plan initiated by the second team of veterans. The structural impact was immediately apparent, emergency lighting activating as primary power fluctuated. The distraction provided the opening Jack needed. He moved swiftly from his position, engaging the nearest Cerberus operator before the man could react. The takedown was efficient, but not silent, alerting Marcus and the remaining team to his location. Gunfire erupted, rounds impacting the wall where Jack had been moments before. He rolled into an adjacent doorway, using the structural cover while calculating his next move. You're outnumbered and outgunned, Jack, Marcus called out. His tactical positioning improved from decades of experience. Stand down before this gets messy. Jack didn't bother responding. Words were finished between them. Action would determine the outcome now. He utilized his knowledge of the facility layout, moving through a connected office to flank Marcus's position. The Cerberus operators maintained professional discipline, covering approaches and communicating positions with hand signals. Jack engaged, selectively neutralizing one operator with a precision strike before retreating from the immediate counter-response. The tactics were familiar to both him and Marcus, a deadly chess game between two masters who had once trained together. "Your extraction team won't make it past our perimeter," Marcus stated, attempting to demoralize his opponent. "We have vehicle checkpoints on all access roads. Helicopter support inbound. This is a losing proposition, Jack." Maybe, Jack acknowledged, maneuvering to a new position, but some fights are worth losing. The exchange continued a calculated series of movements and counter-movements. Jack utilized his superior knowledge of the facility courtesy of Ghost's intelligence to maintain tactical advantage despite being outnumbered. A familiar voice suddenly came through his earpiece. "Primary package clear of the building," Ghost reported. "Moving to extraction vehicles now. Secondary team has secured the data center, downloading all files related to Project Chimera." Jack allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The primary objectives were being accomplished regardless of his personal outcome. Sarah would be safe. The information she had seen would be secured for proper handling through legitimate channels. Now he could focus entirely on Marcus. Jack created a deliberate opening, appearing momentarily vulnerable as he moved between cover positions. Marcus recognized the apparent mistake instantly, directing two operators to intercept while he maintained overwatch. It was exactly what Jack had anticipated. The operators moved aggressively toward his position, following their training in Marcus's direction. They found themselves instead walking into a carefully prepared ambush. Jack engaged both men simultaneously, utilizing the confined space to neutralize their numerical advantage. The confrontation was brief but violent, ending with both operators unconscious and Jack once again changing position before Marcus could acquire a clear shot. "Just you and me now, Marcus," Jack called out, having systematically eliminated the supporting operators. "Like old times?" "You've lost a step, old man," Marcus responded, though his voice carried a new note of uncertainty. "You should have retired years ago." Probably," Jack agreed, moving silently toward Marcus's position. "But then, who would stop men like you from crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed?" The cat-and-mouse game continued through the facility corridors, two aging warriors employing decades of lethal training against each other. Neither man was as fast or strong as in their prime, but experience compensated for diminished physical capabilities. Jack finally cornered Marcus in the facility's command center, cutting off potential escape routes and communication with remaining Cerberus personnel. The confrontation had become inevitable, distilled to its essential components. Two former brothers-in-arms, now divided by fundamentally different interpretations of duty and honor. "It's over, Marcus," Jack stated, entering the command center with weapon raised. "Stand down." Marcus turned slowly, his own weapon held ready, but not aimed directly at Jack. A professional courtesy between former comrades. "You know I can't do that. Too much at stake. The girl is gone. Your operation is compromised. Whatever you were trying to protect is already exposed. You don't understand what you've done." Marcus insisted, genuine concern evident beneath his professional exterior. Project Chimera isn't just another weapons program. It's addressing a critical vulnerability in our chemical and biological defenses. "Then it should be handled through proper channels," Jack countered, "not by a private military contractor operating outside oversight." "The proper channels are compromised," Marcus replied bitterly. "Foreign intelligence has penetrated oversight committees. Legitimate whistleblowing channels leak like sieves. We tried doing it by the book and lost 3 years of research to espionage." Jack maintained his tactical position despite the conversation. "So you decided to become judge, jury, and executioner, targeting American citizens, including a child. That's not protecting the country, Marcus. That's becoming what we fought against." "Sometimes protection requires difficult decisions." Marcus stated, his expression hardening. "You never could accept that reality. Always the idealist, even when idealism costs lives. And you never understood that how we fight determines whether we deserve to win," Jack responded. "The moment you justified targeting that child, you became the threat, not the protection." They circled each other cautiously in the confined space of the command center, weapons ready, but not yet committed to lethal action. Decades of shared history created a reluctance that transcended tactical considerations. "What's your play here, Jack?" Marcus asked finally. "You can't possibly think this ends with you walking away. The resources aligned against you are too substantial." Maybe, Jack acknowledged. But right now, I have something you need more than you'll admit. And what's that legitimacy? Jack replied simply. Your operation is exposed, your methods compromised. Without proper justification, you're just another rogue operator endangering national security for personal judgment calls. Marcus's expression revealed the accuracy of Jack's assessment. What are you proposing? Full disclosure of Project Chimera to legitimate oversight. Proper protection for the Jenkins family through official channels. Your personal guarantee that they'll never be targeted again. And in return, the data your operatives were so desperate to contain remains secured rather than exposed. No public scandal, no congressional investigation into your methods. Marcus considered this proposition with the calculated assessment of a tactical commander. You're bluffing. You don't have the authority to make such guarantees. Check your secured communications, Jack suggested. I believe you'll find messages from certain Pentagon officials who take a dim view of private contractors endangering American children, regardless of the justification. Ghost had been busy indeed leveraging contacts throughout military and intelligence communities to create precisely the pressure Jack needed. The momentary widening of Marcus's eyes confirmed that such messages had arrived. This doesn't change the fundamental security risk, Marcus argued, though, with diminished conviction. The girl remembers everything she saw. And proper agencies can handle that risk without traumatizing her further, Jack countered. Specialized memory experts, age-appropriate security briefing, legal guardianship arrangements that ensure oversight without cruelty. The standoff continued 10 seconds, stretching into minutes, as our Marcus weighed options that had rapidly diminished. Jack maintained steady pressure, recognizing the psychological aspects of the confrontation were now as important as the physical. Time's running out, Marcus, Jack stated calmly. Your facility is compromised. Your operators neutralized. Legitimate authorities are already being briefed on your extra-legal activities. Make the right call for once. Something shifted in Marcus's expression, perhaps recognition of the inevitable or possibly genuine reconsideration of his methods. His weapon lowered slightly, though not completely. How do I know you'll secure the information properly? He asked, professional concern evident in his tone. Because despite our differences, we both serve the same flag, Jack replied. I want to protect this country as much as you do. I just haven't forgotten that the people are what make this country worth protecting. The moment of decision arrived with almost physical presence in the room. Marcus Blackwood, former Delta Force operator and hardened commander, faced a choice between continued escalation with diminishing returns or acceptance of Jack's proposed resolution. Stand down, came a new voice from the doorway. All of you. Jack maintained his position despite the surprise entrance, identifying the newcomer without turning. Agent Ford, interesting timing. FBI Special Agent Carson Ford entered the command center cautiously weapon drawn, but not directly aimed at either veteran. Situations contained, Mason. We have the building secured and the Jenkins family in protective custody. Whose side are you on, Ford? Marcus demanded, visibly reassessing tactical considerations. The side of lawful procedure, Ford replied firmly, which is what should have happened from the beginning. The Bureau has assumed jurisdiction over this matter under national security protocols. Jack studied Ford carefully, noting subtle shifts in the agent's demeanor that suggested recent operational developments. You knew about Project Chimera all along, he concluded. You were monitoring the situation rather than preventing it. The Bureau has been investigating certain irregularities in Cerberus operations for months, Ford acknowledged. Mrs. Jenkins's whistleblowing provided an opportunity to gather evidence of potentially illegal activities conducted under the guise of national security. Using a child as bait, Jack stated, disgust evident in his tone. We had no idea they would target the girl directly. Ford defended, though, with visible discomfort. When that happened, we had to adjust operational parameters while maintaining our cover investigation. Marcus's expression darkened with understanding. We've been under investigation the entire time. You let this scenario play out to gather evidence against us. Against specific individuals within Cerberus who have exceeded legal authorities, Ford clarified. Not the entire organization or legitimate security programs. Jack reassessed the situation with this new information. The dynamics had shifted from a direct confrontation between himself and Marcus to a more complex legal and organizational reckoning. The Jenkins family, Jack demanded. What happens to them now? Full protective custody under federal witness security, Ford assured him, with appropriate medical care for the child and legal representation for Mrs. Jenkins regarding any classified information concerns. And my men, Jack pressed, the veterans who assisted me. Ford's expression suggested this remained a complicated aspect of resolution that's still being determined at higher levels. Their actions, while well-intentioned, involved numerous federal violations. They responded to protect a child when official channels failed, Jack stated firmly. Any prosecution would become very public and very uncomfortable for agencies that allowed the situation to develop. The implied threat was clear. Jack Mason might be one aging veteran, but his network extended throughout military and veteran communities. The potential for public relations disaster if decorated veterans were prosecuted for protecting a child would give any government agency pause. Ford acknowledged this reality with a slight nod. I believe arrangements can be made for minimal consequences, provided all parties agree to appropriate non-disclosure agreements. Marcus finally lowered his weapon completely, the professional soldier recognizing when a tactical situation had become untenable. What about Project Chimera? The security concerns remain valid regardless of methodology. Legitimate aspects of the program will continue under proper oversight, Ford assured him. National security imperatives don't disappear because of procedural violations. But the extra-legal operations end now. The resolution wasn't perfect. Jack recognized the compromises inherent in Ford's approach. Certain individuals would face consequences while others received protection. Some truths would remain classified while others became public. The messy reality of national security in a democratic system. I want to see them, Jack insisted. Sarah and Amanda, confirmation that they're safe and being treated properly. Ford nodded agreement. That can be arranged, though your future contact with them will necessarily be limited due to security protocols. Jack accepted this condition with reluctance. The bond formed through protecting the Jenkins family had become personal, transcending the operational parameters that initiated his involvement. And Dr. Roberts, Jack inquired. He was an innocent medical professional caught in this situation. Appropriate arrangements will be made, Ford assured him. His medical expertise regarding the child's condition remains valuable to her recovery. The tension in the command center gradually diminished as practical considerations replaced tactical standoff. Marcus was taken into custody by FBI personnel who treated him with professional courtesy rather than as a common criminal. Jack surrendered his appropriated weapons, accepting the necessary procedures with stoic compliance. Ford escorted Jack personally as they exited the facility, now swarming with federal agents, securing evidence and processing Cerberus personnel. For what it's worth, Ford commented quietly as they walked, your actions, while technically illegal, probably saved that child's life. There were elements within Cerberus prepared to take more permanent measures if Marcus couldn't resolve the security concern. Jack absorbed this confirmation without visible reaction, though it reinforced his conviction regarding the necessity of his intervention. What happens to Blackwood? Classified debriefing. Limited consequences due to his previous service in legitimate security concerns. Probably reassignment to a position with greater oversight and fewer operational authorities. The response was expected. Men like Marcus rarely faced full accountability for actions taken under national security justifications. The system protected its own even when they crossed lines that should have remained inviolate. Outside the facility, Jack observed the methodical processing of Hell's horsemen and Iron veterans who had participated in the operation. They were being treated with restraint, seated in groups rather than handcuffed or aggressively detained. Small mercies. Your motorcycle club friends will likely face minimal charges, Ford informed him. Trespassing, unauthorized possession of certain equipment, nothing that should result in significant incarceration given the circumstances and their prior service records. Jack nodded acknowledgement, already planning legal support and veteran advocacy resources to ensure proper representation. The Brotherhood extended beyond the immediate operation, creating obligations he would fulfill regardless of personal consequences. And me, Jack asked, finally facing the inevitable question of his own legal situation. Ford's expression revealed complicated considerations. That remains under discussion at levels above my authority. Your actions were simultaneously criminal and potentially heroic, depending on perspective. The political implications alone make this a sensitive case. I'm not interested in becoming a political football, Jack stated firmly. I did what was necessary to protect a child when official channels failed. I'll accept appropriate consequences for that decision. Noted, Ford replied. For now, you'll remain in federal custody while determinations are made. I've arranged for you to see the Jenkins family briefly before transport to a secure holding facility. The reunion occurred under careful supervision in a medical transport vehicle parked at the facility's perimeter. Sarah Jenkins sat upright on a gurney, looking significantly improved despite her ordeal. Amanda stood beside her daughter, visible relief replacing the fear and tension that had marked her features during their previous encounters. Mr. Jack, Sarah exclaimed, her face brightening with recognition. You came back for us. I promised I would, Jack replied momentarily, forgetting federal agents and legal complications in the presence of the child he had fought to protect. How are you feeling? Better, Sarah answered simply. The doctors say my head is healing good, and I don't have to remember the scary pictures anymore unless I want to. Jack glanced questioningly at Amanda, who explained, they've brought in child psychologists specialized in classified information exposure. They're helping her compartmentalize the memories without causing additional trauma. Good, Jack acknowledged, genuine relief evident in his tone. You're both safe now, properly this time, not just running and hiding. Amanda's expression conveyed gratitude words couldn't adequately express. We wouldn't be alive without you. Whatever happens next, please know that we'll never forget what you did for us. Jack nodded acknowledgement, uncomfortable with explicit gratitude, yet recognizing its importance to Amanda. You stood your ground when it mattered, reported wrongdoing despite the risks. Sarah has a strong mother to look up to. Their conversation continued, briefly limited by federal protocols, yet sufficient to provide closure for all parties. Jack received confirmation that Michael was also receiving appropriate treatment, his medical license protected, despite involvement in the complicated scenario. When the time came to depart, Sarah surprised everyone by insisting on hugging Jack goodbye. The child's simple gesture of affection penetrated defenses built through decades of combat and loss. Jack returned the embrace, carefully mindful of her healing injuries. Will I see you again? Sarah asked with a child's directness. Jack glanced at the attending federal agents before answering honestly. I don't know, little one, but I'll be thinking about you. I'll remember you, Sarah promised with the absolute certainty of a child blessed or cursed with perfect recall. Forever and ever. The separation that followed carried the weight of unresolved futures. Jack was escorted to a federal transport vehicle, uncertainty regarding his legal fate temporarily suspended by the knowledge that Sarah and Amanda would receive proper protection. 3 months later, Jack Mason stood on the porch of his modest home near Phoenix, watching autumn sunlight play across his vintage Harley-Davidson. The motorcycle had been returned to him following the resolution of federal charges, one of many unexpected developments in the aftermath of what media outlets had termed the Cerberus incident. The legal consequences had proven surprisingly limited. Veterans advocacy groups had rallied to his defense. Military contacts had exerted discreet influence. Perhaps most significantly, certain officials had recognized the public relations disaster that would accompany prosecution of decorated veterans who had acted to protect a child. Jack had accepted a plea agreement involving probation and certain non-disclosure commitments. Similar arrangements had been extended to the Iron Veterans and Hell's Horsemen who participated. Their actions, while technically illegal, had been recognized as morally justified under the extraordinary circumstances. Project Chimera had undergone significant restructuring, transferred from private contractor management to direct military oversight. Marcus Blackwood had been reassigned to a Pentagon advisory position with minimal operational authority, effectively ending his field career while acknowledging his technical expertise. The Jenkins family had entered federal witness protection with appropriate medical support for Sarah's continuing recovery. Their new identities and location remained classified even from Jack, a necessary precaution, given the sensitivity of information involved. Life had gradually returned to its predictable rhythm. The Iron Veterans continued their charitable work supporting veterans' causes. Jack resumed his routines at the Last Stand garage and club headquarters. To casual observers, the disruption appeared temporary and resolved. Yet Jack knew better. Some experiences permanently altered a man's perspective, creating before and after divisions that could never be reconciled. His encounter with Sarah Jenkins and her extraordinary memory had become such a watershed moment. The unexpected sound of a vehicle approaching broke Jack's contemplation. A black government SUV with tinted windows pulled into his driveway, immediately recognizable as federal transportation. Jack maintained his relaxed posture despite the sudden alert readiness that decades of combat experience had ingrained in him. Special Agent Carson Ford emerged from the vehicle approaching with the cautious respect he had demonstrated throughout their previous interactions. Mason Ford greeted him with a professional nod. "Hope I'm not interrupting. Depends on why you're here," Jack replied, his tone neutral but alert. Ford gestured toward the porch steps. "Mind if I join you? This conversation is better had sitting down." Jack indicated permission with a slight nod, curiosity overcoming immediate suspicion. Ford had maintained correct professional behavior throughout the legal aftermath, neither antagonistic nor overly familiar. "I've brought something," Ford stated once seated, removing a sealed envelope from his jacket. Special delivery approved at the highest levels after considerable debate. Jack accepted the envelope cautiously, noting the classified markings and multiple security seals. "What is this? Open it," Ford suggested. "I'll wait." Inside, Jack found two items. The first was an official document on FBI letterhead, essentially a limited immunity agreement regarding any future contact with certain protected witnesses. The second was a child's drawing, unmistakably created by Sarah Jenkins. The artwork depicted a silver-bearded man on a motorcycle rendered with the endearing disproportions of children's art. Above the figure, written in careful block letters, "My hero, Mr. Jack." Sarah insisted, Ford explained, observing Jack's reaction carefully. The psychologists eventually agreed it might provide beneficial closure for her. The official document provides authorization for limited supervised contact under appropriate security protocols. Jack studied the drawing with an expression that revealed more emotion than he had shown throughout the entire Cerberus operation. "How is she recovering? Well, the head injury has healed completely. The psychological aspects are more complicated, but she's demonstrating remarkable resilience. Having a child psychologist with appropriate security clearance has made all the difference. And Amanda, adapting to their new circumstances. She's been offered a position in a government research facility with legitimate oversight and whistleblower protections. Her expertise remains valuable when properly applied." Jack carefully returned the drawing to its envelope, protecting it from damage. "What exactly does limited supervised contact entail?" "Monthly video calls initially, possibly in-person visits after security assessment, all subject to ongoing evaluation of potential risks and benefits." It was more than Jack had expected. The rigid protocols of witness security rarely permitted such exceptions, particularly in cases involving classified information. "Why?" he asked, simply suspecting motivations beyond simple goodwill. Ford considered his response carefully. "Partially because Sarah's psychological recovery benefits from maintained connection with key protective figures. Partially because certain officials recognize the moral debt owed to you for actions taken when proper authorities failed." Jack nodded, accepting this explanation without further questioning. The complexities of bureaucratic decision-making mattered less than the practical outcome. "There's one more thing," Ford added, reaching into his jacket pocket once more. "This comes directly from the Secretary of Defense off the record." He handed Jack a small object that proved to be a challenge coin, the special-minded tokens exchanged among military personnel to signify respect and shared experience. This particular coin bore the Pentagon seal and an inscription reading simply, "When official channels fail, integrity prevails." "Unofficial recognition of actions that can't be officially condoned," Ford explained. "The Secretary served with you in Desert Storm, apparently." Jack examined the coin with quiet appreciation. The gesture carried significance beyond its physical form, representing acknowledgement from those who understood the impossible ethical dilemmas faced by those in service. "The first video call is scheduled for next Tuesday if you're agreeable." Ford continued, returning to practical matters. "Secure connection established through appropriate channels." "I'll be here," Jack confirmed, pocketing both the drawing and the challenge coin. Ford rose to leave their business concluded. At the steps, he paused briefly. "For what it's worth, Mason, I believe you made the right call. Sometimes the system needs reminding what it's supposed to protect." Jack acknowledged this unexpected endorsement with a slight nod. No further words were necessary between men who understood the complex interplay between official authority and moral obligation. After Ford's departure, Jack returned to his contemplation of the autumn landscape, the weight of the challenge coin in his pocket, a tangible reminder of duties that transcended formal service. The drawing represented something equally powerful but fundamentally different, the simple gratitude of a child whose life he had helped preserve. 5 years later, Jack Mason sat on the same porch, watching a black SUV approach his property once again. This time, however, the vehicle's arrival brought anticipation rather than wariness. The door opened to reveal Sarah Jenkins, now 11 years old, emerging with the confident energy of healthy childhood. She spotted Jack immediately waving enthusiastically before running toward the porch with the abandonment of youth. Amanda followed more sedately, exchanging respectful nods with the federal agents who maintained discreet protective presence during these authorized visits. "Mr. Jack," Sarah called out, embracing the aging warrior with unrestrained affection. "I got all A's on my report card, even in math, which is super hard." "Well done," Jack replied, the gruff exterior softened by genuine pride. These quarterly visits had become a highlight of his otherwise solitary existence, a connection to something beyond the brotherhood of warriors that had defined most of his life. Amanda joined them on the porch, her appearance reflecting the stability their new life had provided. "She's been talking about this visit nonstop for weeks. Apparently you promised motorcycle maintenance lessons." "Basic maintenance only," Jack clarified with mock seriousness. "Safety first." Sarah rolled her eyes with the beginning hints of preteen attitude. "I remember everything you teach me, Mr. Jack. Perfect memory, remember." "How could I forget?" Jack responded, sharing the inside joke that had developed between them regarding her extraordinary ability. Their visit continued with the comfortable familiarity established through years of carefully managed contact. Sarah explored Jack's workshop with enthusiastic curiosity. Amanda shared updates about their new life, necessarily edited to maintain security protocols. Jack observed their interactions with quiet satisfaction. The fear and trauma that had marked their first encounters had faded, replaced by healthy resilience and cautious optimism. Sarah would always carry the memories of what she had seen at the research facility, but those memories no longer defined or threatened her existence. The legal and security complexities had gradually evolved into a unique arrangement that balanced national security requirements with human considerations. Sarah's extraordinary memory had eventually been recognized as potentially valuable rather than merely dangerous, leading to specialized educational opportunities under appropriate oversight. As evening approached, signaling the conclusion of their authorized visit, Sarah presented Jack with her traditional parting gift. Another drawing, this one showing remarkable artistic development compared to her childhood efforts. The image depicted Jack on his motorcycle beside Sarah on a smaller bike, rendered with surprising technical accuracy. Between them stood Amanda, and nearby a group of riders clearly representing the Iron Veterans. "It's called My Other Family," Sarah explained proudly. "For art class. I couldn't tell them it's real people, of course. Had to say it was imagination." Jack studied the drawing with genuine appreciation, recognizing the significance beyond the artistic skill it demonstrated. "It's perfect, Sarah. I'll hang it with the others." Inside his home, a dedicated wall displayed the progression of Sarah's artwork over the years, visual testimony to her growth and recovery. From childish scribbles to increasingly sophisticated compositions, each piece represented another step away from trauma toward healthy development. The farewell carried the familiar bittersweetness of their visits, tempered by the knowledge that another was already scheduled. The federal protocols remained necessary reminders of the extraordinary circumstances that had brought them together. As the SUV departed, Jack returned to his porch, reflecting on the unexpected path his life had taken. Decades of military service had prepared him for combat and sacrifice, but not for becoming the protective figure in a young girl's reconstruction of family. The Iron Veterans had evolved as well, their mission expanding beyond traditional motorcycle club activities to include child advocacy and protection initiatives. The Hells Horsemen had become allies in these endeavors, the bonds forged during the Cerberus operation, creating lasting connections between veteran communities. Project Chimera continued under proper oversight, its legitimate security objectives pursued through lawful means. Marcus Blackwood had eventually retired from government service. The events surrounding Sarah Jenkins having prompted belated reflection on methods and priorities. Jack Mason, once defined solely by his warrior identity, had discovered unexpected purpose in peacetime. The skills honed through decades of combat had ultimately served their highest purpose, not in warfare but in protection of the most vulnerable. As twilight settled over the desert landscape, Jack contemplated the challenge coin that remained on his desk, a reminder that integrity sometimes required actions beyond official sanction. Beside it sat Sarah's first drawing, the childish depiction of her hero, Mr. Jack, preserved as testimony to the difference one man's decision could make. The code of the warrior Jack reflected transcended military service or formal authority. At its essence, it represented the commitment to protect those who could not protect themselves, regardless of personal cost or consequence. A commitment he had honored when it mattered most. The Guardian's Code.